intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and tragically murder. And let me also say at the onset that people are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So let me say that. So I guess this was Wednesday morning. I get a call from my mom. My mom calls me saying, "You're not going to believe what I'm looking at." I said, "What are you looking at?" She said, "They have somebody that you know from childhood on Baltimore News right now, wanted for shooting their ex-partner." I couldn't believe it. I was a bit stunned, right? So, um tragically, the situation went from bad to worse, where the person who was shot, unfortunately and very tragically, ended up losing their life. And the person who accused of shooting the victim went on the run. And I want us to pick it up from there, okay? Because there's some updates here. Um, and I am just a bit bewildered at the fact that within a 12-month period, there are two men that I have been personally acquainted with at different points in my life who either killed their partners outright or have been accused of killing their partners. And I'm a little stuck with this shit, y'all. So let Channel 2 News there in Baltimore, WMAR, I used to work there back in the day. I'll let them tell tell the story and give the facts as has been released by the authorities thus far. So let's take a look.
A verbal argument gave way to gunshots here on Majesty Lane in Edgewood, leaving 46-year-old Kisha Blackwell critically injured and a gunman on the loose.
We know who the suspect is, and the victim was known to the suspect, so we believe this is an isolated incident at this time.
Less than 24 hours after the shooting, a marked police squad car remained across the street from the victim's home as the search continued for 42-year-old Jamar Wise of Towson. According to charging documents, Blackwell notified police about 2 weeks ago, notifying them that her soon-to-be ex-husband was still contacting her in violation of an active protective order. The couple had been separated since July, and that order, which went into effect in September, prohibited Wise from attempting to contact, harass, or abuse Blackwell. Wise also was ordered to surrender any firearms and claimed he had none. A neighbor who did not wish to be identified said police had made regular appearances at the victim's home in recent weeks, and Blackwell reported that she had been followed home by multiple unknown vehicles, even though she lives on a dead-end street, that she had ignored multiple calls and texts from Wise, and that he had even offered through relatives to pay her to drop misdemeanor charges he faced for violating the order. For all of the warning signs, the ongoing protective order ultimately failed to protect her. If you know anything about Wise's whereabouts, you're asked to call the police.
So the update on this story, very tragically, Kisha Blackwell succumbed to her injuries and she passed away. Jamar was apprehended not too far from the Maryland, Pennsylvania line in Hanover, Pennsylvania. He surrendered peacefully, I believe, to Harford County Sheriff's deputies. How do I know Jamar? I know Jamar since we were little kids. When I say little kids, I mean 3, 4, 5. Jamar's like 2 years younger than me. His mom and my mom used to kick it. They used to go out and hang out together, and either my older sibling or one of Jamar's relatives would sometimes be tasked with babysitting us. And we spent a lot of time together as little kids. His family member was our next door neighbor. Okay, so he would be over there a lot, and his family member's spouse ran a daycare in which I used to go to the daycare, and he would be there also. So I spent a lot of time with him in early childhood, and knew his family pretty well. Like I said, we were neighbors with his family. Um, if you guys remember, oh, I said they apprehended him, right? So he surrendered peacefully. So okay, I just want to make sure I said that clearly. Um, I, I the fact that it was this time December when my high school classmate, my person who was on I was on the track team with, we was in school for all 4 years together in high school. Rajay, this time last year, Rajay murdered his pregnant girlfriend and then went to his ex-wife's house and killed her, then killed himself. It is very wild to me, and I don't know. I think pointing to I think looking at this and being like, well, Kim, maybe you just know wild dudes. I don't think that's the case, everybody. Um, I think that this issue of intimate partner violence and domestic violence and these situations resulting in people losing their lives, I just think this is just far more common and far more of a malignant issue that continues to let's keep going with that, metastasize in our society. And the fact is, it's so commonplace that we're just kind of used to it and we're just kind of numb to it. Like I said, I pay attention to these domestic violence stories. I see these joints across the country all the time. I bookmark them. I don't report them all because that's not, I want to say these women's names and uplift their stories as much as possible, but I don't know if I can do that without seriously depressing the hell out of everybody, right? Because I don't want you guys to come here, to feel bad or sad or down. That's not my intention, but I just feel sometimes compelled to talk about these things because number one, look first and foremost, I see it is my demographic that is being taken out here, and that scares me, and that scares me for other Black women, right? Period. It scares me for women generally, but specifically for Black women because I'm not sure how much everybody really cares, right? People just kind of look at it like, oh, that's just, I don't know, something that happens, or that's a tragedy. Let me say this: Kisha Blackwell was a mother of three, 46 years old, and by all accounts, she was doing everything within her actual power to put some distance between she and her ex-husband. She had a protective order in place, everybody, and he was reported to have violated that protective order, and he still showed up allegedly at her house, according to what Harford County sheriff deputies say. They say that he showed up at her house and shot her outside her home. And that's what he is accused of doing. And it's just so wild that, like I said, I don't claim that Jamar and I were friends as adults just because, people go their own directions. You don't keep in touch with everybody that you knew as a kid. But I knew him, and we knew each other. We grew up oh, in the same neighborhood, right? Played together. Used to my other friend who I've known, who lived on the other side of me, who I've known my whole life. We were talking about this last night. He was like, "Man, Jamar was the best, one of the best break dancers in all of the whole neighborhood. He used to spin on his head excellently, right?" And, when recounting what was going on, another person said to me, they were like, "Oh man, poor Jamar." I'm like, "Listen, I know we know him and knew him, but if he did what he is accused of doing, I'm sorry. I can't. My sympathy has limits for those that will use violence in order to achieve domestic violence specifically. Like there's violence in defense of yourself, and then there is violence when there is a documented pattern of violence and harassment, as is well documented online in court cases. So I'm telling y'all this, I think, in part to kind of vent, and then on one hand to just kind of in the most unfun way to be correct about something, to be right about something. Like, I'm not just saying this stuff. Like, y'all, this stuff happens all the time. And if you really deep it, and I'm let me go to the chat here and just see what y'all are saying. But like, if you deep it, like if y'all think about, do I know anybody that has been murdered, or do I know somebody that was um the perpetrator in a domestic violence incident? Chances are you may. And what does that say? What does that say about how often this happened? What does that say about the way that this crisis of a situation, of a problem, is being received generally by society? I feel as though, I'm not saying it. Well, I guess it is accepted. I was going to say, I'm not saying it's accepted. Like, oh well, people who date crazy people. I mean, but like, we know what the stats are in gender-based violence, in domestic violence, and intimate partner violence, right? I mean, is it just accepted that some men are allowed to kill us? We just got to take that L because that's one of the hazards of being in relationship. Like, I don't want that for anybody. I don't want that for anybody, regardless of who it is. But again, being that this is a black women led channel and platform, I center black women first and foremostly. I don't want that for us specifically. You know what I'm saying? Um, and the fact that I know two bros who killed, or alleged, one definitely killed, the other alleged to have killed, and I'm saying alleged here truly out of respect, because out of respect for his family, right? Because that there's a long-term affection there. I've known these people for 40 years. You know what I'm saying? So I will say alleged out of respect, but it doesn't look good. It does not look good out here. And so when people find themselves in these situations, like, what do you tell them to do? Like, what was Keisha supposed to do? It sounded like she did everything. And at the end of the day, the police could not keep her safe. By the way, and as you heard in the report, as part of the protective order, he was supposed to have turned over all his guns. If it went down the way the police say it did, where did that gun come from? These gun laws don't mean shit, dog. And apparently neither do these protective orders. And again, that's another thing I see as a common thread for these intimate partner violence situations that happen across the country. So a lot of these women, specifically these black women, will have protective orders in place. They will have protective orders in place, and they don't keep the women safe. So again, I wanted to send condolences going out to Keisha Blackwell's family. I'm so sorry that this happened. I'm so deeply sorry that this happened. And just knowing between this and what happened with Rajay this time last year, it's just really making me think and wonder, like, is anybody trying to get monsters? Is anyone trying to keep the monsters off of us? You know what I'm saying? Obviously the cops can't do it. I don't know if it's can't, I don't know if it's won't, I don't know. But what appears to be either antipathy from the community, or just a sort of resignation that this is just a part of life. This is just what happens. I don't want that for the young girls, and for the young non-binaries, and for the young people. I don't want that for them. I want their abusers and people who would do them harm to be intervened way earlier in life, okay? Before they get to this point, somebody needs to intervene with them very early as possible, at the first indication that somebody might be capable of intimate partner violence. And and again, that's across the gender spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew, I hate doing these stupid disclaimers, but I have to acknowledge it, because I mean, I know it's the truth. I know chicks kill their dudes too, not at the same rates, but they do. Yeah.